HO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
The Office of African
that has, this is a horrific thing that was done at the
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning into In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Back like we never left on your home for today's and classics, hip hop and R&B. None other than your family. It's your boy and your girl, Sir
It's your
Charles.
boy, Miss Max. Razor's over here.
Oh my God, Max.
He's slacking already. He's slacking already.
He not have his coffee. Max,
Something.
He ain't have something. You need a pill, baby.
All right, let's do it one more time. Max, you're supposed to bail me out of stuff like that. That is terrible. I didn't blush over here. Y'all know I'm Coco Brown. That's hard for me to blush.
Let's try one again. We got act right. We got company.
No.
IMHO.
She fell right in too.
Tell a friend. Tell a friend. Y'all know where to find us. None other than your family, Sir Charles.
Miss Max.
I'm here.
Okay.
Razor.
We're gonna keep it moving. You know,
Right.
But you can be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we for sure appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see, as you can hear, we are kicking the show off today with none other than family, sister girl, none other than that's right. That's right. None other than playwright extraordinaire. She's engages the community at the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center. She directs the programs. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, but folks know she has an angelic voice too, by the way, if you've never heard her sing, Max. You know, Razor.
Thank you.
Leslie Scott Jones. Give it up, Leslie Scott Jones. Thank you for joining us once again.
Yes, thank you.
It's always fun to talk to y'all.
Yeah, and always appreciate you. And so Leslie, our listeners know that we actually are being supported right now in part by the Jefferson School Foundation, because one of the missions right now is the whole branding of making sure that the community knows what all the school has to offer. Because here's the thing, like that's sort of was a pro and a con, a gift and a curse, I guess you could say, that y'all did such a good job at the Heritage Center. Because now, straight up, and Kim and Bernard, that y'all don't get mad at me for saying this, but it is what it is, because so many people, when they hear Jefferson School, they think Andrea, Leslie, African American, which is great on y'all part for the great work that you're doing, right? But it is the school, the city center as a whole is such a great resource for our community. And so what we've been doing and we're going to continue to do is to highlight, all the tenants there. But as we said, they're definitely not a stranger of yours. Because you've been on here many a times, and folks see the work you're doing. So, we are approaching Juneteenth. I know that's the main reason you're here, but of course you can please plug the other things that you all are doing.
It's our Jubilee Day.
Yeah.
Okay. A few years ago, I started calling the 4th of July the 4th of July.
Break it down.
Making people mad.
Hey, agitate. So when Juneteenth became a federal holiday, I was like, okay, hopefully that means that our people will recognize its significance, right? And for the last few years, the Jefferson School has been celebrating Juneteenth in fine fashion, and it's no different this year. We are parading again.
Okay.
Good stuff.
And it's always interesting to me. People are like, "Oh, y'all parading this year?" Well, yeah, of course. Didn't y'all know parading that's a Black thing? We've been doing that from the beginning. And so we are parading, and then when you get to the Jeff School that day, you will have the Black Business Expo on the yard. So we're going to have like 25 to 30 Black business vendors ready to take your money.
And you are talking about Ty Cooper's expo, the one that he coordinates. Okay.
Yes. So we partnered with them. They have been looking for a new space to do it. And they wanted to change the time of year that it was done.
Okay.
And I was like, Juneteenth, come on. Like, that's a perfect marriage. Let's go.
Sure.
That's beautiful.
So they'll be having, they're bringing all their vendors, and of course they're going to have panel discussions and their pitch contest, same as always. And we have the Emancipation Concert as usual. We will have Mr. James Bryant singing the Negro National Anthem to open us up. Reverend Brenda Brown Grooms will be pouring libation to the ancestors for us. And then we have 3 bands. So we have the Songbirds and Divas band, which I'm a part of. And then we have another hometown favorite, Ezra Hamilton, coming back to town. Gonna play some music for us. And awesome. Ellis Williams from Richmond. He's bringing his quintet. So yeah, man.
Hold on now. And you doing this in what time frame? You doing all this?
We doing all that from 11 to 3, honey. We gonna pack it all.
Wow, it is
have some fun, yo.
Like, so that's worth your time. Like, nobody can say, should I go? What's going on? This is gonna be plenty for everybody.
And you better get there, because if you late, it might be over. I'm just saying.
So will the vendors be set up throughout the duration of the event?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the food?
So we have Angelique is bringing her truck.
Yeah, shout out to Angelique.
And we got, and I never remember his name. Thing about getting old, you can't remember people's names.
Are we talking Pie Guy? Are we talking 434th Street?
No, we talking the Fish Man. I can't remember his name. And I know
who the Fish Man?
He is.
Me for the right price.
Oh Lord. And we're hoping to get a couple other food vendors out there. So we gonna feed you. Jeff School, we always feed you.
Blackjack.
Yeah, we gonna have some fun, man.
Blackjack.
You talking about blackjack?
I can't, y'all. I just said I can't remember his name.
I mean, we're trying to help you out.
I don't know.
I thought you needed a hint.
I remember his name.
My bad.
Miss
My bad.
Davina is cursing me right now, saying the name, yelling the name into the radio. But yeah, DJW is gonna be our DJ in between song, in between bands.
Okay.
Yeah. Pendleton Presents is doing the sound for us. Like we
BJ.
Yeah, BJ, my buddy, my friend.
Yeah. Good dude.
Yeah.
That's
Have a
good
little
stuff.
bit of electric slide or something that
you gonna
no
have to talk
party
to
is
Devin.
a party without the electric
You gonna have to talk
slide.
to Devin about that. I let him do his thing. I just say, bro, can you help us with style? Show up, and he's like, yeah, I got you. I let him do what he do.
Yes, indeed. So we talking Juneteenth, family, over at the Jefferson School of African American Heritage Center, out in the front yard. Y'all know what it is. So it's jam-packed day. It's plenty for everybody, and they're gonna feed you. That's one thing I love about Black folk in Charlottesville. Like, we love to party, entertain, but then we also educate too. You know, as we say on this show, edutain. You know, like we want y'all to, we want to incline your ear, but I want you to get something from it too, learn something from it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's beautiful how y'all use the space.
I am so excited about this year because we have people coming back, for the third or fourth year, and it's really cool when you send that call out, right? And like, hey, you walked in the parade last year, and you get the email back. Hey, of course I'm gonna be there. Like that just warms my heart.
Yeah.
But this year and for every year in the future, I want everybody to know, everybody within the sound of my voice, we need to black this street out.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is our day, right? I need all y'all to show up between 9 and 10 in the parking lot at Jackson P. Burley.
Okay.
All right. Get in line. So at 10 o'clock, we can kick this thing off.
Tell them how to do it.
That's
right.
Hold on. It's 10 o'clock color people time. You got to tell us earlier. You got to tell us before the time.
You wanted, Miss Leslie.
We ain't talking no CP time now. We ain't talking no CP time.
So then you need to tell us earlier than when you actually wanted to. Let's keep it real.
No, we ain't miss much if we get there about 10:15.
Lord have mercy. Lord
That's how we think. We ain't missed
by
too much.
10:15, the parade down the street.
That's fact. Hey, but you know what though? I have been seeing, and I appreciate the community. Shout out everybody out. I've been seeing a more push, I feel like, this year though. And maybe that's why people are reaching out. Because I feel like I'm seeing more people share online about, hey, we having this parade. It's gonna be big. Need everybody to respond if you want to be involved.
Oh yeah, you know
so
what?
I like that.
I got the list of Black churches within a 70-mile radius. I sent out letters. I'm like, y'all need to read this in your announcements. Y'all, and you know what? You can't walk. That's fine. Get in the car.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Put the banner on the side of the car, wave to the people.
Make it happen.
I mean, Prolific gonna have a flatbed with speakers, show up and show out. Like, come on.
Right. Okay.
We got my cousin Butch bringing the pack, motorcycle group.
Okay.
He coming back. I mean, this is a chance for us to show who we are, to celebrate our culture.
For sure.
In all the ways that we do it.
Urban legend has it. That's how Razor got his name. Razor, how he would cut in and out of traffic on that motorcycle.
Oh,
but it's been a minute.
Lies.
I thought it was urban legend. I mean, like, you don't want me to,
but
you don't want me to say some other ones.
The better one was when, am I honest, Mac? Am I being honest?
Be honest.
In your humble
when I came off the street from being a pharmacist, I used to street race motorcycles, and I would end the race at the beginning of the line. Like, as soon as it starts, so I would kill them, and that's where the name originally came from. But I had to put a little spin on it as time has went along to make it sound better. So that's so.
He was a good barber too.
Yeah, I was, and that's what I adopted. I was a very good barber, so that sounded better. Once I married Max, and then I realized that
get respectable.
Hood wasn't gonna cut it with Max. It was not gonna cut it. So the razor part was the rebirthing of it. You know what I'm saying? The barbershop. So
right.
Love it. Yeah. So family, we are joined by Leslie Scott Jones, and she is talking about this year. You can't miss it. If we didn't emphasize it enough, it's free. free event. You know, you have no excuse. You got entertainment. You got free, no, not free food, but you got food. You got food.
Yeah, no, not food now.
But
come on,
you know,
set everybody up.
And apparently Max gonna be leading the electric slide, you know. So
hey.
all that's going. You don't want to miss
now.
it. But so you said so we talking parade begins promptly 9 a.m.
No. Line up for the parade begins at 9.
Okay. I'm trying to help you out. I'm trying to get people.
Line up for the parade begins
Okay.
at 9. I need y'all to be there so y'all get in line because you know
get in line at 9.
Yeah, because we got.
But if you
How far are we walking?
We got. So we're starting at Jackson P. Burley, right? Coming down to Preston Avenue, Preston Avenue to 4th Street, and then it ends at the main parking lot at Jeff School.
School. Burley
right?
Jeff School.
Yeah,
that's right.
So yeah, we got the card club coming back.
Okay.
We got D&D dancers. And they're trying to get a dance crew from Louisa to come on out. You know, like, and that's what I told everybody. I was like, if you walked last year, bring a friend with you.
Okay.
You got somebody to do the same thing you do, bring them with you. You got somebody that didn't walk last year because they found out about it too late, bring them with you this year.
That's right.
You know, I mean, we have such a thick history in this town. We have so many of us who are here, and we need to show up and show out.
Right.
Absolutely right.
You know,
so
it's Burley.
For those of us that attended last year,
yes, ma'am,
who on the fence about whether or not to attend this year, what do you have that's going to entice them? What's the new? What's the new additions?
Who all over there? Okay.
Who's gonna be there?
The new addition is one of the new additions is the Songbirds and Divas band. Okay, so we've done a total of 3 concerts now at the Jeff School. And unfortunately, Rochelle can't be with us for this one, but it's going to be me and T. Ames, Chris Red on piano, Raymond Brooks on drums. Yes. Tucker Rogers on guitar and Drew Pompano on bass.
Nice.
And when I say these men know how to play a beat, y'all, if y'all don't know, you don't know.
So it's
a
dance party.
You don't want to miss it.
And we are doing pieces from the other concerts that we've done. So it's going to be basically, you know, Black musical history, you know, so you're going to hear everything from jazz to R&B to, you know, a little bit of groove thing going on. And then for those of you who know Ezra, now you know he going to put it down.
That's right.
And this is his first year doing Juneteenth with us.
Okay.
Yeah, I back in like February, he was in town, and you know, whenever he comes into town, he does a show somewhere. And I saw that he was playing, but I couldn't make it. And I was like, I need to get him to be at Juneteenth. Like that's the thing. Like, you know, sometimes when he comes to town, he only like messages a couple of people. So it's like a secret thing to know that Ezra's playing. And I'm like, no, he's hometown.
Yeah.
He needs to be.
So it's a special treat for us.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
All right.
So I was really excited when I sent him a text, and I was like, hey, you want to play Juneteenth? And he was like, absolutely, let's go.
Okay. All right. Nice.
And for those of you who don't know Ellis Williams, so Ellis Williams is a jazz trumpeter from Richmond. He started an entire like music revival in Richmond.
I've heard the name, but
he started this this music thing called I think it was called like Music by the River or something like that. But it was all Black artists playing in clubs by the river in Richmond. And so he did that for a couple of years, and then of course COVID hit and ruined everything. But he just came out with a new album last year, and I mean, this man playing a trumpet, it is absolutely music to your ears. And he's bringing his quintet, and he's going to do some of his original pieces and also do some covers. So it's going to be he is so freaking talented. So talented. And we've never had the Black Business Expo there. So, you know, anybody who went to the Black Business Expo to, see your favorites. Well, now they're going to be on the yard.
There you go.
I think that's a good merge.
Absolutely.
I really do.
Yeah. Makes sense. It makes sense, right? Yeah. Beautiful. And you got the Black food truck, so you got a variety of that. And now if folks want to sign up for the Business Expo, do they still go through TIE? Or do they
go through TIE?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So y'all can look up Black Business Expo or
I think he
a short shot.
He put something on Facebook about it a couple of days ago.
Yep.
So it's out there. And yeah, I mean, sign up to walk in the parade. We want absolutely everybody out. Now, we need to be politically correct for a moment.
Okay.
So if you are not of African descent, but you are an accomplice in the struggle, then you can still come out. You can't walk, but you can line the street and cheer us on. Because if you are an actual accomplice in the struggle, then you know that it ain't always about you.
Amen.
Okay. So
raise and giggling.
Preach.
Line the street.
Preach.
Line the street.
And I feel like
people on.
Yes.
And
I feel like we've had that conversation with you before, and we can, so we may have to have you back to even dig deeper. Post parade, we may have to have a discussion about how it goes down.
We can discuss
but you're
that
spot on
all day.
But you are spot on in how you said that. So y'all gonna start. Once the parade ends, 11 to 3, you're gonna continue to get the party on, because I got a feeling this parade is gonna be a party too.
Oh, so, it absolutely will be a party. And I'm gonna tell you, Buster is already lining up drummers to kick it off. I'm like, go ahead, Buster. Bring them on. Bring them on.
Yeah, so starting there Burley and then at the Jefferson School. That's awesome. I got one more piece for you. Since you are such an acclaimed performer, what do you think about the Negro National Anthem? Do you think it's something that needs to remain for the sake of our history? Or do you think we should update it? Curious.
I absolutely think it needs to remain because it is part of our history. I think it doesn't just pay homage to where we were, but it also, because it was the music and the words were written by Black people, right? It is showcasing our excellence, right? From a time where our excellence was not necessarily recognized by everybody. And I think we need reminders of that daily, right? We need to pay homage to those shoulders on which we stand. So the people that came before us, that did the things that made it easier for us to do the things. So
respect.
So, I mean, I wouldn't shake a finger at anybody that wanted to update it. But I think for history's sake,
you heard some of this music lately. I don't know,
but the children got to do what they do.
But
Max.
I do have another question for you.
We ain't gotta like it, but the children got to do what they do.
So I'm just being funny. How do you feel? And this came up recently, and I wasn't sure what my opinion of it was. But how do you feel about people who are not of African descent performing or singing, joining in with us, accomplices, as you refer to them, that Negro spirituals or the national anthem?
So I think it depends on the person.
Okay.
Right. We had a long conversation about Songbirds and Divas playing for Juneteenth.
Okay.
Because 2 of our members are white. Right. Had a long
How'd that
conversation.
Come up? You brought that question. You brought that up?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And through the discussion, it was like, okay, they've played here before.
Yeah.
Right. They've played on our stage. And yes, this is a day about us. And these are people who have shown us that they are accomplices, that they do understand the importance of the day. And they are not trying to take any of that air out of it. Right. They have shown us through action, through deed, that they are here to support in whatever role we ask them to.
Okay.
And that's what an accomplice does. So So, you have to choose carefully. I mean, it's just like when we're casting a show at CPG and there's a white person in the cast, we choose very carefully who we let enter that space because it needs to be someone who understands that this space ain't about you.
Right.
And you need to be okay with not being the focus of anything. Right.
And that makes total sense. The one caveat that I would add though is that sometimes we do ourselves a disservice when it comes to business though, because I see those lines get blurred and crossed. Meaning that I feel like just like we patronize and every other culture makes money off of us hand and foot.
Absolutely.
Like, so I don't agree with cutting our money off for the sake of saying, well, like only Black folk.
I think the rule I live by is I need to be able to not feel grimy when I go home.
Absolutely. Spot on.
You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
Like if I do something with someone, if I partner with someone, if I need to know that they are here for the right reasons and I'm here for the right reasons. Right. And if I do something and I feel grimy at the end of the day, then you know what? I'm making a different decision next time.
That's right. And like I hear you always say, even people that volunteer at the center or work at the center, they realize that it's like if you are of another nationality, you realize that it's like this is not you are not in charge.
You are not in charge.
So that's the difference. You are not in charge.
You are not making any decisions up in here. And there have been several instances where someone the Caucasian has tried to force what they wanted, right? In that space. And we just have to tell them this is not about you. This is not about you. This is not the way this is done up in here. And if you want to be in here, then you need to recognize that you are secondary in this space, period. And if you're uncomfortable with that, leave. Right. It's really
just
okay.
Like that.
It's really okay if you like no harm, no foul.
Respect.
That's what they do in their spaces. But when we do it, it's looked at as something, oh, that's so mean. Right. And why you being like that? Well, I'm being like that because if I was in your house, I'd have to play by your rules. So why is you having to play by my rules in my house all of a sudden an affront? No.
Just make sure we're not appropriating.
Right, exactly. Make sure we are all respectful of each other. And why is that? My question is, why is it when a Black person says, be respectful of me, of my culture, of the way I do things? Why is that considered being mean? Why is that considered an affront?
Agree.
Yeah. Right? Our culture and our heritage and all that is just as valuable as anyone else's.
Say so.
Very true.
Say so. Thank you.
So, and we as Black people need to stand 10 toes down on that, in those moments where we're like, actually, no, I'm not going to allow you to disrespect me in that way.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us as always.
Absolutely. It's always fun.
We got to go. But of course, people can find more information about all the other programs and stuff going on by visiting jeffschoolheritagecenter.org, jeffschoolheritagecenter.org. Right?
Yeah, we have opening in our contemporary gallery on June 1, Haiti Across the Water. It's a really amazing exhibition. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. We also have a Swords into Plowshares event on May 21st on Market Street Park. So yeah, go to our events page. All that stuff is there. And if you want to sign up to be in the parade, on the events page, click on Juneteenth, and the link to sign up is in the description.
And if they want to volunteer, help out.
And if you want to volunteer, you know what? Give your girl a call.
Okay.
434-260-8722. Give me a call. I got a job for you.
Find something about to give that to the world.
I will find something for y'all to do. 434-260-8722. I will find a job for you because there's more than enough. And as we know, as our grandmothers told us, many hands make light work.
Hey, that's right. Give it up for Leslie Scott
Thank
Jones.
you so
as
much
always.
for being
Jefferson,
here.
Jefferson,
It's
like you had
always
to
so
say.
fun. You're going to give us the real. We can count on that. We can count on that.
I try to do that every day.
Yes.
Every day that ends in day.
Appreciate you. Good, Miss Max?
I'm good. Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, thank you.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous. And you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
Yes. Sir Charles.
It's Max.
Razor.
We are in the booth in the building. Once again, like we never left, to be exact. IMHO Talk Show. Tell a friend, because we are right now about about to get pretty deep, but it's just in line with the conversations that we that y'all are accustomed to having with us, family.
That's right.
When we just talk about how we be our authentic selves and learning more about ourselves, getting that knowledge of self, and respecting and celebrating who we are as a people and a culture. So that's why it excites me to bring my friend, my colleague in the booth today with us, none other than Yahusef Medina. I mean, the list goes on as far as his activity in the communities. He's an educator, K-12, as well as schools both in New York as well as Central Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
He works on the higher education level as well, including with HBCUs. Just a well-around good brother. And as we hear his story and further deepen our lineage, right, and our connections as that diaspora, it's important to mention that the brother is also a Sephardic Jew. A lot of people gonna be like, excuse me,
what's that?
What? So that's why he's gonna break it down for us. He's gonna break it down, and it kind of falls right in line with how unfortunately the world constantly is seeing how folks are claiming certain religions, certain titles and things like that, and excluding others. So this is going to be a conversation of inclusivity and definitely the pride as people of color and and our positioning and whatnot. But Yahusef, man, that was a lengthy intro, but like hopefully I did you justice. Good to see you.
For sure, brother. Thank you for having me. Peace to everybody.
Welcome.
Yeah, man. Thank you for coming, man. So let's start, like we can get back to sort of your beginnings, or what got you interested in education and your shift over into your current belief set and whatnot. But go ahead and define it for us. Let's go ahead and address that. What does it mean to you to be a Sephardic Jew?
Sure. That's a sort of a long answer. I'll try to unpack it in the brief time that we have here. But when we talk about Jews on a worldwide scale, there's many different cultures made up within Judaism. Judaism is really more so associated with the faith, but then when you talk about Jewish people, there's many different cultures and segments within that. So you have what are called Ashkenazi Jews. Those are the Jews that mostly descend from Eastern European Black countries and Central Europe as well, Germany, Poland, Russia, and I would say those are more so probably the face of what we look at as Jewish people on a worldwide scale. Right. Many of them have relocated to the land of Israel, and so those are many of the faces that you see. But there's also what are called Mizrahi Jews, or Jews that descend from the Middle East. There's West African Jews that come from places like Nigeria and Ghana, right? Talk about the Igbo tribe. You have Ethiopian Jews, right, in Eastern Africa. You have, of course, what are called Sephardic Jews. Okay, so Sepharad is a Hebrew word that is typically denoted with the region of Spain and what is now known as the Iberian Peninsula, so Spain and Portugal. And so what happened was, many thousands of years ago, as this fledgling nation was developing, under different captivities, you had exodus that took place from what we now know as the land of Israel, right? That region. And so people went to different parts of the world. And then, so this particular sect went out to Spain and inhabited that area of Iberia.
And are these man-made titles or these biblically?
Well, no, these are titles that have developed over time. I mean, the word Sepharad is in the Tanakh, it's in the Bible. So it's more so like a categorical denomination, not denomination, but sect or group. As you know, when people spread out, they take on different cultures, different customs in the places that they go. And so each of these particular forms of Jews, right, these different groups, they have slightly different customs. And so as this nation begins to develop, this group of people in that region of the world begins to develop. Of course, they intersect with the Moors that overtook Spain for 700 years. They're around for that whole time period. And then eventually, and I'm gonna wrap it up. I know it's hard to unpack, in a really quick time, but as the nation of Spain and Portugal begin to develop, right, and they begin to take on sort of this Catholic tradition, and align themselves with that. We also see these countries, we're getting into the Middle Ages now. They start the worldwide expansion, right, of their empires, and they go out to Africa. They go to what is now known as the Americas. All of these things are taking place. Meanwhile, there's this group of Jewish people that lives in that region. And around the time of the Spanish Inquisition, which is 1492, roughly around the same time that quote unquote Columbus, he set sail, right? His name was Cristobal Colon. He set sail. There's what's called the Spanish Inquisition, wherein they exiled anyone that wasn't a Catholic. Okay. And so Muslims were kicked out of the region, the Moors, and then also these Sephardic Jews. And so what happens is, the Catholic Church either forced them to convert to Christianity or to leave that area. And many chose to leave. Many also converted and tried to stay there, but they continued to face ongoing persecution. Anyways, this group winds up, one of the places that they wind up going is to the Caribbean, is to Latin America. And they wind up mixing in with the people there as well. And so they were also persecuted in these places too, because of course, as Spain and Portugal comes to the Americas, they maintain the Catholic regime. And so anyone that was practicing Judaism or anything else, they were considered uncivilized. And so a lot of these Jews actually mixed in with the local indigenous population, African population. And then, as time progresses, you have descendants of these people. And so that's, in a nutshell, what Sephardic Judaism, Sephardic Jews, at least from my perspective, that's where that segment of people come from. Now, there's also Sephardic Jews out in like Turkey and Greece and different parts of the world, but this is my particular family story. So
Thank you for that. So, and my understanding is Sephardic Jews believe in the Christ, right? Like believe.
Well, some do and some don't. Some have maintained sort of Orthodox Judaism, right, which subscribes strictly to the Old Testament, or what Christians refer to as the Old Testament, what Jews call the Tanakh. And then there have been those that are called conversos, or B'nai Anusim, which is where my family comes from, children of the forced ones, children of those that were forced to convert. And many of those have taken on, that belief in Mashiach and Messiah.
See, that's very interesting. I'm glad you broke that down, because I thought that it was just a sect that part of their belief system was that, like the Jesus the Christ or what have you, has come, and sort of they believe the New Testament part. Like, but you're saying that didn't come for the Sephardic Jews until they were blended with the Catholics and the
I mean, I would say by and large, there's been messianist movements in Judaism throughout history. So, I mean, even if we look at the first century believers, if we're going to deal with the New Testament, you go through the book of Acts, all of these people were Jews, up until you get to Acts 15, where they talk about, how to deal with these Gentiles that were coming in. And so, there's always been a remnant of Jews that do believe in the Messiah, but of course it comes from a Hebrew lens, opposed to what has been imposed upon the world over through Christianity and Catholicism. So but then you also have Jews that, like you said, have been forced to convert to Catholicism, and so they take on that sort of approach, if you will. So it's very nuanced history. I mean, it takes a lot to really get into it and unpack it. I probably didn't do it justice right there, but I'm just trying to provide some context for the listeners out there.
And and we are up against the hour, so we're gonna get right back and dig deep into it. But a key part to that intro that you gave us, though, I feel, is that shows the complexity of us as a people.
Absolutely.
Like we're not a monolith, right?
At all.
Depending on where your ancestors may have migrated, where you live, the way you were raised, but at the end of it, hopefully we find some semblance of of how we all coexist. Right?
Absolutely.
And what I hear you saying too is that we learn so much from each other.
Right.
Like worldwide. It's a global thing. It's not just one way, one type of person,
right?
One land. So we're gonna dig deeper into it, but we are up against the hour, so we're gonna take a quick break. We are gonna be right back with Yahusef Medina. Hey, y'all tell a friend. So y'all know how to reach us so many ways. 101 Jams, IMHO Talk Show online.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101. 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 1013 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 1013 Jams.
Yeah, buddy. Sir Charles.
Miss Max.
Razor.
IMHO Talk Show. Tell a friend, 'cause we are joined by none other than Brother Yahusef Medina. So Yahusef, when we went to break, we we're just bringing everybody up to speed as far as like your religion, and then we're gonna get more into the ethnicity of it all as well, and the role that plays. But I wanted you to follow up as well on the fact of us not being a monolith, and something very pertinent that you said as well was how some Sephardic Jews were forced into Christianity. So I wanted to hear on the role that plays, in your life with you believing, in Yahweh.
For sure. Well, I just wanted to say that as far as the monolithic piece, I challenge the listeners to really, dig and do your research, because the narrative that they try to push now is that, we're all the same, and they teach Africa as a continent opposed to complex area with many different nations and tribes and so forth. And when we were forced here through what they call the transatlantic slave trade, what we may term the Ma'afa, those that survived that Middle Passage, we had many different religions, languages, cultures, and in fact, to the listeners out there, you all should look at the slave trade database by Emory University. You could just do a Google search. When you pull it up, you're gonna see all of well, not all of it, but what they could sort of salvage from the documentation of the enslaved people that were here, notes from the masters and so forth about the different makeup of these enslaved people. And so the slave trade database has very rich content about where folks came from, what their names were before they were changed to English and so forth. Different aspects of their culture. All of that stuff is preserved in there. So people should do a deep dive in that. You'll be surprised what you find. You'll see people, you'll see Arabic, you'll see Hebrew, you'll see people with Moorish persuasion. You'll see all of these different sort of aspects represented in there. So I think that's really fascinating as well.
For sure. So now that being said, talk more personally about that statement, because that for some reason still ringing in my head, like the fact that there were some Sephardic Jews that were forced into believing parts or believing in Christianity. And I'm curious the role that plays in your life, because I know like one of the things you told me about yourself is that like you are a Jew that also believes the New Testament or the stories thereof.
Right.
So I'm curious on the weight that holds in your spirituality, as far as like to the basic public, it's sort of opposing sides sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
It can be. I mean, as far as I'll deal with the first part of that question, with the forced conversions. I mean, I think it's well documented when you look at the history of like the Crusades that took place in throughout Europe and parts of Africa, between the Islamic Caliphate and the Catholic regime, these wars over religion have been going on for thousands of years. And so after Rome sort of restructured what they understood to be Christianity and made that a part of their empire and a part of the way that they sought to dominate other people groups. We're going back to like, the 3rd and 4th century, Common Era. Once that took place, Catholicism, for a large part of history, and this is not to denigrate or disparage anyone that's Catholic out there. I'm just speaking about the history, and this stuff is well documented.
Yeah, truth is true.
And so again, this is no dissension there, but I just wanted to say that when that took place, Catholicism, and by extension Christianity, right? Because what we know as Christianity today is really a product of the Protestant movement, which didn't take place until many centuries later. You're talking about 15th century Common Era. So for roughly 1,000 years, Catholicism ruled throughout Europe, virtually unchecked, and that religion was used as a weapon as well. And so when you look at the expansion of Europe to the quote unquote New World, or what we now term as the Americas, native people, indigenous people were forced to convert to Catholicism. Enslaved Africans were forced to convert. And again, it all depends on what side of the map you landed on. Because of course, when we talk about the English colonizers, right, they were last. They were the last ones to be involved in the transatlantic slave trade, if you will. Okay, so when you talk about the colonies, like the United States and what have you, the type of Christianity that enslaved Africans were forced to submit to there looked different than what enslaved Africans were forced to submit to in Latin America. Latin America was majority Catholicism. And then when you look at like the United States, Canada, certain British territories in the Caribbean, this was a Protestant form of Christianity. But anyways, because the Sephardic Jews were predominantly represented in the area of Iberia, Portugal, Spain, Morocco, these areas, which were also heavily influenced by the Catholic regime, many of them were forced to convert to Catholicism. And if they didn't convert, then their assets were seized. Sometimes they were tortured or put to death, extremely persecuted. Okay. And so if they didn't convert, they left. And so that's where we sort of touched on in the before the break. So that But and then you had another follow up to that. Yeah. Was it?
No, that was switching gears a little bit, for the next one. But that's key though, Max and Razor as well, is that because a lot of times people forget that there's cultures as well and religions as well who believe similar or may even believe the same story, but it may not be Westernized or may not be Europeanized. You know what I mean? So Christianity in its raw form of what Jesus represented, was in African countries before Europeans. You know what I mean? So it's but because they didn't worship in a certain way, they didn't speak the same language. A lot of that gets missed sometimes.
Sure.
But but we are joined by Yahusef, Medina. And so that whole forcing thing kind of takes us to the next question. Because, and thank you for explaining that so beautifully. Because us being Black Americans, right? We know a lot about being forced to do stuff.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it's there was so much that our ancestors brought with them, that I'm sure felt native, even in this new land, even while there were things that were foreign to them, that they were also forced to do. But your ethnicity is something too, that as you've been vocal about, and I feel like that kind of culminates to this part of the conversation of your race being of mixed heritage of what we consider Black and also was considered Puerto Rican. Right. So kind of explain what that means to you and how that fits into this puzzle, because I feel you have a very interesting perspective on that we're not as different as maybe the social norm says that Black and Latino or Hispanic is.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to all come to grips with the fact that whether you're Black or brown, you live in colonized lands. Okay, so the reason why Latinos speak Spanish is the same reason why African Americans speak English. Is not these are not our natural or origin, points, if you will. And so when we talk about Blacks and Latinos, we got to start the conversation with the fact that 90%, okay, and you can look this up. This is well documented. In fact, Henry Louis Gates did a great expose on this some years back called Black in Latin America. And he spoke to these figures and what have you. I'm trying to give the listeners some things to go back to and look up in your own personal time, right? But we got to start the conversation when you talk about Black and Latino with the fact that 90% of enslaved Africans that survived the Middle Passage, that survived the Ma'afa, were transported to what is now Latin America and the Caribbean. 90%. So the overwhelming majority of people that were taken from Africa and brought to this side of the world went to what are now Spanish and Portuguese speaking countries. So when we talk about Black and Latino, we have to be real about our history, and we have to understand that there were colonizing forces at work, divide and conquer. So the way that Latinos, by and large, in Latin American countries were sort of, how could you say, miseducated, is the fact that they were taught that white is superior. Not that that's any different from here in America, that the same thing was taught, but they were also taught that you can blend with white, you can mix in with the white race, and the whiter you become, over your generations. This is a known concept. If you look at the mejorar la raza or the caste system, right? There was a caste system in place in Latin America for this reason, that they wanted to, you know, I guess, how could you say, put the idea in these conquered people's minds that they could aspire to be white. Yeah. And the way that you did that in a very real way was becoming Catholic, marrying people that were lighter skinned than you. And then over time, you know, you would sort of become a more civilized or accepted person. Okay. And so that mindset has permeated the minds of Latinos for centuries. And so now when they arrive here, many Latinos that are still miseducated because they're coming here, they're first generation, they don't know their history, right? They're just trying to survive. They're trying to get jobs. They're trying to work. They're trying to provide for their family. They don't have the context to understand their particular form of menticide, their particular form of colonization. And so when they interact with African Americans here, there's a disconnect. And there's an anti-Black sentiment. But again, you know, you don't poke somebody's eye out and then blame the person as that got a missing eye for bumping into stuff.
Right. Don't victim blame.
We got to look at the hidden hand behind this. Whereas as in North America, African Americans, the particular type of colonization that took place here was one drop rule. Right. So if you're one drop Black, right, then now you're Black. There is no you can become white. Even those that were white passing went through a very difficult time in doing so, right? And Black and white were kept separate. There was no way for African Americans to sort of legitimize themselves in the eyes of their white colonizers. Not in the same sense that it was in Latin America. There was a different approach here. Okay. And so I think that's very pertinent to understand when we talk about Black and Latinidad, Black and Latino relations, because African Americans, by and large, have you know, suffered a particular type of oppression here that somewhat differs from folks in the Caribbean and Latin America.
And why do you think that was different? Like, so it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm learning just like probably a lot of our listeners, is that those individuals who were taken to South America, it sounds like were taken maybe to then create more of their people, right? Versus enslavement for commerce.
Well, okay, so I think where the disconnect is that slavery took place on a global scale, right? So we know this. I mean, and we could provide some dates. In fact, you know, slavery ends here in America when 1865. Slavery ends in Puerto Rico in 1873. Slavery ends in Cuba in 1887. It ends in Brazil in 1891, 92. Okay. So slavery was you know, a phenomena that took place throughout this entire hemisphere. The difference was that in the United States, the domestic slave trade became a business unto its own. And so the actual business of producing slaves superseded that which was taking place in Latin America. And so that sort of took on its own form of, you know, because then after that you get into the Black codes and then into Jim Crow. And so, you know, there's a departure there, right? Whereas in Latin America, there was slavery, but, you know, when slavery ended, especially due to the way that race is thought of in Latin America, you know, not to say that persecution ended, because Black folks are being persecuted the world over, but it was different, you see, and it was more so a marginalization of Black people to where you're not really a part of mainstream society. We just try to keep y'all over here, keep you quiet. They couldn't really do that here in the United States. And so that's, I think that's the difference. And I'm losing. I lost my second. I know you got to follow a question.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to jump gears for a second.
Sure.
All right.
Don't jump too far.
No. Based off of
the religion that you practice.
Sure.
Let's say that, right? Because we talked earlier and I said, I have a problem with us always talking about where we landed as opposed to where we took off from, right? When it comes to using the word Jew or Jewish, right?
Yeah.
Am I wrong by saying it is trying to align yourself with what we consider the greatest person that ever walked this earth?
Say that again. Is it
all right? When we take on the title of religion, that we say, and we say that we're a Jew, or even Moors, right? For people, you're saying that you are in line with the person who was the greatest among us in human form.
And by that you mean the Messiah?
Yeah, by the Messiah. What Christians call Jesus, or what? I'm not sure. I know you're using some other term, so I don't.
Yeah, right.
When
don't forget the suffix too, Razor, like the whole ish part of
well, I'm gonna get to that that part.
Okay.
Now, when it has the ish to it, it's just an emulation of the original thing in the way I look at things, right? So we say like we're the original Jews and things of that nature. Is it possible that, I don't know why I was thinking about this, is it possible that black supremacy and white supremacy are the exact same thing? It's just that white supremacy was able to take hold here because they created the dynamic. But if I'm telling you that we were kings, we were queens, we were architects, we were everything, I'm saying that we're the best of, I'm also speaking in the form of supremacy, right? How do you translate that over to love when it comes to religion, when you use the word Jew?
Right. That's a complex question there. I'll say this.
Like 3 of them.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think black supremacy, as you're talking about, where you have these black nationalistic groups that want to eradicate every other race and only preserve themselves, I think that's a byproduct of white supremacy. I mean, where did we get that from, right? But as far as, the nomenclature and the use of these different words, language is very complex, and I think it loses its meaning when you put something into a different language. And so it's hard to capture the essence of what one is, aligning themselves with when you depart from the original language. And so in the process of these transliterations and these translations that take place, there's ambiguity that arises around these terminologies. And so, I mean, to say that, black people in our original form, right, we're kings and queens and architects and these, I mean, that's a true statement. I don't think that, I think where it crosses the line is when folks will say that, well, this particular group was better than other groups, or we somehow deserve to be, placed on a pedestal above this group or that group. Because look, there's pyramids all throughout the world, right? There's pyramids not only in Egypt, they got ziggurats in Iran, right? They got pyramids they found in Asia. There's pyramids in Mexico, in Guatemala. And so when people take that stance, it's like, I think that, discord and these types of things is where I think folks get in trouble. Is one thing to be proud of, your particular heritage and what have you. That's great. But it shouldn't come at the expense of others, and I think that's learned behavior from colonization that we sort of maybe adopted over time.
Yeah, I think that's a big difference between just to your question, Razor, white supremacy and what you termed as black supremacy, is that like how you use it, right? It's like to have pride is one thing, but to use it to dominate or to enslave, a group is I think would be a different level.
I think it's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so to have pride the same as hating?
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, we go through the rebel flag and they say it is heritage. We say it's hate. Same coin, two different sides. Like what my man said earlier, when religions went to different places, they adopted the culture into the religion.
Right.
And then that became a new religion. And a lot of times we know just from like all the black churches that pop up, storefronts and everything else, somebody got mad at somebody and created their own church. Well, I believe it's the same thing. It's just in a different context because of more words have been created now than were original.
Yeah. And see, and I think we got to base it on the actions too. Right. It's like somebody can say it's heritage all they want to, but if your heritage is based on free labor, enslavement, and beating, whipping, separating families,
I'm with you on that. But it also looks differently. Just because I don't put my hands on you doesn't mean that I don't traumatize you in other ways.
And I have a follow up to that too, Razor. Like, so since we brought up the term Jewish, do you see a difference? Do you believe in a difference in if you were to use the term like Hebrew or Israelite? Right, like do they have more of a meaning or different?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's nuance to all of these things. I mean, really, the term Jew comes from one who descends from the tribe of Judah.
Okay,
or the southern kingdom of Israel, and that term sort of took on its own form because majority of Jews today, the Ashkenazim, they'll say that they descend from the southern kingdom of Israel. Many of them claim heritage back to the Levitical priesthood, to the last name Cohen. They'll say Levites or the tribe of Judah or Benjamin, and so they identify with that term because that's where Jew comes from. If you follow the transliterations, right, from Hebrew into English, right, but of course, Hebrew is a language. It's also a culture. Israelite means one that is from Israel, right? I mean, but they have modern terminology now where they say Israeli. So there's like a lot of different terminologies that you could get into. I think it all comes down to how different people identify, So
all right, thank you for that, man. So we are joined by Yahusef Medina, and we got much more from you. I see Max is raring to go, so we're gonna take just a quick break. So hold that thought, Max, and family, y'all stay tuned. Tell a friend. We're gonna be right back. One more segment with Yahusef Medina. Good info.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things, still the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous. And you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay aligned with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
All right. Yes, indeed, family. Still in the booth in the building with our good brother Yahusef Medina, talking about everything Judaism, and we're talking about race relations, colorism. I mean, the list goes on and on, but it is indefinite. Hope you're enjoying it and learning from as much as we are. But I wanted to kick it over to Max. She had a follow-up for him before we switch gears.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So I just had a question in terms of like getting your thoughts on humankind. And I say that because obviously we all ascribe to these different nationalities, backgrounds, categories and things like that. But you said that you believe in the Old Testament. And if that's so, then at the very beginning of it, Genesis, it talks about God creating the heaven and the earth, and it goes on to talk about him creating Adam and Eve. So we all start from just these two people. And I wondered how you viewed that, considering, you referring to yourself or your people group as Sephardic, if I'm saying that correct. Sephardic,
Mm-hmm.
Jews, and all of the different things that you've talked about just here today.
Right. So basically, how we went from Adam and Eve to all of these things.
Right.
I mean, I think.
And whether or not you believe that at the end of the day, despite all of the atrocities, we are essentially just one people.
Yeah, humanity, right?
Yeah.
The human race, if you will. I mean, I think that when we talk about the origin point of mankind, really the entire we're using the Bible, right? What was known as the Bible. When you look at the entirety of the scripture, right? It's really telling of the human condition. And so, of course, it begins with the fall of man, right? Adam and Eve, right? But that sin nature that was, I guess, taken on, you know, continues to show up in various forms throughout the story. Really, the Bible is the story of mankind. And its ongoing rebellion, right? The flesh, the carnality, our human nature is corrupted. And that's why there was need for the Messiah to come and to show us our condition and depravity and need for salvation. Because apart from him, you know, we would just continue to descend into these lower depths of evil. You know, the law that was given to the Israelite nation, right, that Yah chose, was really to point to that notion, to show that, you know, regardless of what we do, we actually can't be perfect in and of ourselves. We need his help. His standard is perfection. So in order to get there, we need to submit to him. And I don't mean, you know, I know I don't, you know, I could start preaching right now, but you know, I attempt to answer your question because I don't think you can answer it apart from that. I mean, the reality is that, you know, the world is in the condition it is because of sin. And, you know, until that is rectified, you know, there will be no peace. There will be no, you know, the peace that will be restored on earth is going to be through the Messianic age, which is prophesied all the way back from the Torah, you know? And so, you know, again, I know this is not a religious conversation or theological conversation,
bro,
but you know, that's essentially, I think, how we get from there to where we are now, you know?
That's a perfect question, Max. It really is, because I feel like that takes us into, you know, like sort of the last segment for the interview of like, what is our hope? Like, where do we find the peace, right, moving forward? And I would love to hear from you from both angles when it comes to the ethnicity piece and, you know, and also the religious piece. Because as you know, like, we're in a time right now, even here in Charlottesville, to where, you know, the never-ending war, quote unquote, you know, in the Middle East is still thriving because essentially, you know, like a one side of a, you know, of a religious group / ethnicity, you know, feels that they are just as entitled, feel they are just as holy, they are just as ordained, right? But we can't seem to come together, right? Like, this is centuries old now, right? And then I even think about the you know, so that's one footnote, but the other piece is the, you know, like the race part of how we are so. I remember I was at the Million Man March when they came to DC, the second one, not the first one. I was a kid in the first one, but but the point that was made was that we aren't a minority, we actually the majority,
right?
And the chief, I forget the exact title, but the gentleman was like the chief of Native American tribes for like nationally, and his whole point was we are the majority because our diaspora is linked more than we give ourselves credit for. So you know, so I just want to bring those two things of like going forward. Where's the hope? Where's the peace? Like how, like what's the solutions, man? We got you here for the solutions. Well, you know, like we want the Black and Latinos to realize we won.
For sure.
We want all the Jewish descent to say we won. What's up?
I mean, I you know, these are complex questions that's tough to answer in a few minutes, but I'll say a couple of things. I mean, I think we're in a very sensitive time right now. People are hypersensitive to things that are taking place on a human level. I think post George Floyd, we've seen resurgence of sort of, you know, this sensitivity around how we treat our fellow humans, right? How we treat our neighbors and things like that. And I think in America, because we're a Western society, and we don't carry the wisdom of the ancient, I think we have by and large in the society a dichotomous perspective. Black, white, this, that, good, bad, you know, there's no middle line. And so what winds up happening is when there's two extremes, people will look to align with the lesser evil or this extreme or that extreme. But the problem is that it's still extremes.
Yeah.
And so I would just urge people to do the knowledge. I think people have to really do their research, you know, in the time we in where everything is fast food, you know, everything is, you know, 30-second sound bites and 1-minute video clips and, you know, people want the information immediately. AI, you know, you type something in and immediately you get a response. People are not taking the time to really dissect and analyze these situations. And so when you take the time to learn your history, again, you know, where I'm at is a process of years in the making to where, you know, and I still got a long, long way to go.
Right.
But, you know, you at some point you have to take the initiative to say, you know what, I actually really want to be more knowledgeable about this topic. And you have to be objective in your approach. You have to be able to synthesize the information based upon where truth aligns. And so learn about this side, learn about that side, see why this side is saying that, see why this side is saying that, right? There's a reason behind it. It's not just, you know, somebody just wanting to be evil and then the other person wanting to be good. It's not that simple. You know, some of these conflicts that we're talking about right now go back millennia, you know? And so when you look at the history, you'll be able to see why certain groups align the way that they do. And as far as, you know, relations within this country, race relations within this country, you know, as quote unquote minorities or minoritized populations, you know, the future is ours. I mean, it says by 2050 it's going to be a majority, quote unquote, minority nation,
and they're fighting it every day.
Yeah, and but you know, so it behooves us to learn about each other. Let's not let the language be a barrier between understanding our different cultures. You know, when we get out there and travel, man, I encourage the young people out there, if you're in school or what have you, take time to study abroad, go and see the world. You'll see that people that look like you speak different languages and believe different things and have different understandings on how things, you know, go. And when you do that, it's going to enrich your perspective and your worldview. And then you could bring that back here and influence your community. But we got to get over this divide, or they speak Spanish or they speak this, or, you know, they don't really understand me. Well, then take the time to give the understanding, you know, and sit down with each other.
That's right. That's fine.
I was over here looking up the chief that Charles was talking about. I have a picture. I was at the second Million Man March too. And I have him over there with the Fruit of Islam around him over that picture. I give it to Charles.
Okay. Yeah.
But I have a question for y'all. And I think this is for both of you. We say we're not monolithical people.
Right.
We say experience different cultures to broaden your horizon.
Right.
But if the broadening your horizon keeps us separate, why not be monolithical and look at yourself as one?
Well, I mean, I think we can be monolithical in the sense that there's obviously a fight that we've been in for centuries now. And so if you see someone that, you know, is black or brown or another person that's being oppressed, then you can stand up for that individual and, you know, and you know, seek to build on that level. But I don't think that, you know, learning more separates people. I think it actually brings people closer together, because the more you understand about a culture, you'll have more compassion for that culture and you'll have more empathy. It's the things that people don't know, that they're ignorant of, that they fear and that they want to keep away. But if you start to learn about that culture, you come to find out, man, we got actually more in common than we had apart. You know? And so I think there's power in that, you know?
Yeah, good answer.
Absolutely spot on, man. Yeah, and that's a conversation that you can't rush through, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Know, and we definitely got to have you back. But we got, you know, but anything else on y'all's mind, you know, because this is very educational, you know. So I don't think any question sort of is not worthy. I think, this is a time where our listeners, whatever y'all thinking as well. Hopefully you're appreciating this conversation with Yahusef. But yeah,
we got another minute.
Oh yeah, you good?
Okay, I wanted to take a moment and just actually, for those that are interested in sort of this Jews of the diaspora, right? Jews of color and what have you, there's actually going to be a very I'll say inspiring, but also revolutionary in a sense, exhibit that's going to be coming to the Virginia Museum of History and Culture by the Black Judaic Heritage Center on June 26th and June 27th. And I can send you the flyer.
Okay, yeah, I'll share it.
From 4:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., June 26th, June 27th. It's called Through the Spectacles of Ethiopia. And it's going to go into sort of this history of Black Judaism. And this is not to be confused or conflated with Black Hebrew Israelites and what have you. These are people that have traced their descendancy through slavery going back and still maintain an authentic Judaism today. And so there's going to be a whole expose on that, a presentation, a short documentary. So for those that want to learn more, please come out. And I just sent Charles a flyer so he could post it on there. Because I know it's a lot of history to unpack and it's tough to get into. But, again, I think that the human race is very eclectic. There's a lot of diversity out there, and we should embrace diversity, opposed to shunning it. It can only help us grow as a people. We live in a global society. So the more languages the more cultures that you have familiarity with, the more places that you're able to go and relate, the better you will be, and the more you'll be able to actually flourish in this society, especially the society that's on the verge of coming, right? And we talk about the next 10, 20 years out. It's important for the young people to get out there, go study.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, man. And I got to ask you too, as we close your work, sort of your day-to-day work, you are well versed when it comes to working with the community, with youth.
Sure.
You mentioned HBCUs.
Yeah.
And higher education in general, as well as K-12. And I'm sure you saw a pretty stark contrast between working in New York City and working in Central Virginia, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious on how your belief systems play in your day-to-day work.
Absolutely. So I started my work in the juvenile justice system in Harlem, and I was there for about 7 or 8 years, and then moved down to Virginia about 5 years ago. And I did work in juvenile justice system in Richmond, but then also K-12. And so that's sort of my background. But I think, it's important to carry, at least I do, the ethics, right? And the teachings, right? The principles, if you will, into our everyday work. Again, Judaism is not a religion that is for the recluse, right? Or, you got to be in complete silence in order to reach this spiritual nirvana hierarchy. It's about actually taking what you've learned and changing the world around you through your actions, and so it's important to treat everybody kindly. And, I attempt to do these things. I'm not perfect. Again, I got a lot of work to do on myself, but these are the things that I try to do. And I love working with the youth, because I know I identify with their situations, especially those that are quote unquote at risk youth. Right. Because I was there as a kid growing up. I experienced many of the same things. And that was part of my reasoning for going into that line of work, because I knew what it was like for me growing up and not having certain guidance and certain things to keep me on track, and so it's important to have those advocates in these spaces, man, because that's potentially the most vulnerable population. When you talk about incarcerated juveniles, there's a lot of inequities that take place in that system, so we need people there to represent for those kids.
Yeah, man, it's beautiful, man. Spot on, my brother. Continue blessings.
Oh man,
blessings,
man.
man.
Appreciate it, my brother. Thank you for having me.
Yes, indeed. And don't be a stranger. Like, I think there's so many avenues, Max, this conversation could go down, but I'll kick it to you to close in your fashion.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for sharing your time with us here today. It was very enlightening. Sure our listening audience enjoyed it. And you must come back.
Hallelujah. I'll be back. I'll be back.
All right.
Bizra
Thank you.
Hashim. Yes.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, Black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More Black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that Black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially Black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, Black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More Black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight are attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.